Okay, so before we launch into JavaScript and the beginnings of JavaScript, I'd like to rearrange my workspace a little bit to make it a little bit easier on Sublime. Now, why am I doing that? Well, the reason I'm doing this is because when I am going to be editing JavaScript inside some JavaScript file, or for CSS for that matter at this point, Sublime is going to try to help me autocomplete as I type. The problem is that Sublime at this point thinks that all 40 lectures from beginning to end are part of our project, and every single one of them, as you could see, has some CSS in it. Some of them, when we get to Bootstrap, already have some JavaScript in it as well. So all that is going to be tried to be put into the context and put into memory of Sublime to try to help us out. So that's going to create some slowness. So let's go ahead and redo our workspace and only include the lecture, the particular lecture we're on, in our workspace. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, if we go to the command line and let's go ahead and cd into my lecture 40, there is a command that Sublime comes with, and it works on Windows, Linux, or Mac. And this command allows you to start Sublime in a particular directory. So in this case, I mapped it to the keyword Sublime, and if I say dot, which at this point is the current directory, and open it up, Sublime will open the Sublime editor, and it will only have that particular folder as its kind of a workspace. So nothing else will be included. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll rearrange my windows so we could see a little bit better. Now, how, first of all, did I get to the Sublime, or Subble as it's called actually, this command? Well, if we go to the browser, I opened up a couple of links for you, which I'll include right after this lecture, that will allow you to go step by step, and it will explain to you how to set this up so you can actually do this yourself. Again, it works on Mac, which is very similar to Linux, so you can pretty much follow the same directions except maybe for the folder structure. And on Windows the same way. This is another link for Windows. You could certainly follow this command line tutorial so you can open Sublime for whatever directory you want. Okay, so here I am. I rearranged my windows a little bit. So now I am sitting in lecture 40, index.html, and here's our index.html. So we, just like before, can start browser sync and have the code that we write sync together with the browser, so we won't have to refresh this anymore. So let's go back to our command line, and we are in lecture 40 right here. And as you can see, it's in the examples lecture 40. And let's go ahead and start the browser sync. We'll say browser sync. It's the same command as we did before: start, server, directory, and so on. And we do need star, 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 because if we actually go back, you'll see that we have a JS directory. And if we do an ls on that JS directory, you'll see there's a script.js in there. So if we change something in that script.js, we want that to be reflected in the browser as well. So let's go ahead and start our browser sync together with our star, star, star. So it will go ahead and go down directories as well. We'll start it up, and we'll go to our browser, and you can see here it loaded up the page but didn't execute the index.html yet. So let's go ahead and click on that, and here's our lecture 40 heading 1. Okay, so what we're actually interested in is not so much the page anymore, is we're interested in the JavaScript that is going to run. And Chrome Developer Tools, which is part of Chrome browser, is a great tool to have and to actually use. So what we're going to do is we're going to do Command-Alt-I, and on Windows I believe it will be Control-Alt-I. So we'll go ahead and open Chrome Developer Tools. And this is basically where we've been kind of living for the last so many lectures. We've been living in the Elements tab. What we're going to be living from now on, at least for a little while, is in the Console tab. So when we click the Console tab, this is where the JavaScript and the JavaScript messages are going to show up. Now, we don't really need to see this lecture 40 thing all the time, and I do want this window to have a little bit more space. So the way we could do that is by going this ... and actually undock this whole panel. So we'll do that right now, and that just threw out this panel all the way here. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it a little bit smaller, and we'll align it just like so. And now we can have our full-blown JavaScript console right in front of us as we write our code. So in this here, in the Sublime text, we could try to make this a little bit more minimized, but what we actually should do is just to close it all together because we know where we are. So at this point, we'll go ahead and open up our script.javascript.js, and our index.html, and we'll do Command KB or Control KB on Windows, and we'll just close the File Explorer. Okay, so now that we have our development environment the way we want it, in part 2 of this lecture, we're going to speak about where to place JavaScript code.